The rain came down in sheets across Brooklyn, turning the streets into rivers of reflected neon and shadow. It was the kind of November storm that made the city feel smaller, more intimate, as if the world had contracted to just a few blocks of wet pavement and amber streetlights cutting through the darkness. Emma's bare feet slapped against the cold concrete, each step sending jolts of pain through her body. The wedding dress, what remained of it, clung to her skin, heavy with rainwater and streaked with dirt from her desperate flight. The delicate lace that had cost Marcus 2 months' salary was torn at the hem, dragging behind her like a ghost she couldn't shake. She didn't know this neighborhood. The brownstones loomed on either side of the narrow street, their windows dark or glowing with the warm light of families inside, safe and unaware. Emma's vision blurred. Whether from rain or tears or exhaustion, she couldn't tell anymore. Her ribs ached with every breath. Her ankle throbbed where she'd twisted it jumping from the car, and her hands were scraped raw from catching herself when she'd fallen in an alley 3 blocks back. Keep moving. Just keep moving. That's what her mind chanted, over and over, the only thought that made sense anymore. Behind her, somewhere in the labyrinth of Brooklyn streets, Marcus was looking for her. Marcus, with his perfect prosecutor's smile and his pressed suits and his carefully constructed lies. Marcus, who had looked her in the eyes just hours ago and said, "I do," while knowing what he'd planned for later. The memory flashed. The reception, the champagne, his hand on her lower back guiding her toward the car. "Let's take a drive before we head to the hotel," he'd said. "I want to show you something." And she'd trusted him. God, she'd trusted him completely. Emma stumbled, catching herself against a wrought iron fence. Her lungs burned. She couldn't run anymore. Through the rain-blurred haze, she saw the steps of a brownstone, its porch light creating a small circle of relative shelter. It wasn't safe. Nowhere was safe, but she couldn't take another step. The world tilted as she climbed the 3 steps to the door. Her hand left a smudge on the dark wood as she steadied herself. Emma raised her fist and knocked, once, twice, 3 times. Weak strikes that barely made a sound, but it was all she had left. "Please, please let someone kind be home. Please." She knocked again, harder this time, desperation giving her strength she didn't know remained. Her forehead pressed against the door, rain streaming down her face mixing with tears she'd been holding back for hours. "Please," she whispered to the wood, to the night, to whatever force in the universe might still be listening to prayers from a woman in a ruined wedding dress. "Please help me." Vincent Romano stood in his living room, a glass of scotch in his hand, watching the rain stream down the floor-to-ceiling windows. The penthouse level of the brownstone gave him a view of the neighborhood he'd grown up in, though it looked nothing like it had 30 years ago. The old Italian bakery was now a craft coffee shop. The corner store where he'd stolen candy as a kid was a boutique selling $1,000 handbags. Everything changed. Everything except him, it seemed. "Boss, we need to finalize the Delancey Street deal by Friday," Tony Marchetti said from the leather sofa, his voice pulling Vincent back to the present. Tony was scrolling through his phone, his expression tense. "The developers are getting nervous." Vincent didn't respond immediately. At 43, he'd learned that silence often said more than words. He took a sip of the scotch, 18-year-old single malt, smooth and expensive, and continued watching the rain. The Delancey Street property was legitimate. A real estate investment, all paperwork clean, all money accounted for. It was part of his 5-year plan to transition the Romano family business into something his mother could be proud of. If only his father could see him now. Vincent almost laughed at the thought. Salvatore Romano, who'd ruled South Brooklyn with an iron fist and a quick temper, would have called him soft, would have said that going legitimate was betraying everything the family had built. But Salvatore was 10 years dead, and Vincent had spent those 10 years cleaning up the mess, paying off debts, both financial and moral, and trying to figure out who he was when he wasn't his father's weapon. "Vincent?" Tony pressed. "Friday's fine," Vincent said quietly. "Tell them we'll sign." That's when he heard it. A sound so faint he almost missed it beneath the storm's rage. Knocking. Not the confident rap of someone expected, but something desperate, almost pleading. Vincent's instincts, honed by years of staying alive in a world where trust was currency and betrayal was common, immediately went on alert. No one came to his door unannounced. The building had security, cameras, a doorman who knew better than to let strangers up without clearance. The knocking came again, weaker this time. "You expecting someone?" Tony asked, already on his feet, his hand instinctively moving toward his jacket. "No." Vincent set down his glass and moved toward the door, his mind running through possibilities. A trap? An informant? Someone lost who'd somehow bypassed security? Tony positioned himself to the side, cautious. Could be a setup. Vincent looked through the peephole and froze. A woman. Young. Maybe late 20s. Soaking wet, hair plastered to her face, wearing what appeared to be, his mind struggled to process it, a wedding dress. She was leaning against his doorframe, looking like she might collapse at any moment. What the hell? Vincent muttered. What is it? Tony moved closer. Vincent unlocked the door, and the moment he opened it, the woman's eyes met his. They were dark, terrified, but there was something else there too, a desperate determination, the look of someone who'd decided to survive no matter what. Please, she whispered, her voice hoarse. I need help. I'm sorry. I didn't know where else to go. She swayed, and Vincent's reflexes took over. He caught her before she could fall, feeling how cold she was, how she trembled despite trying to stand. Up close, he could see the scratches on her arms, the way she favored her left leg, the exhaustion etched into every line of her face. Tony, get Dr. Caruso on the phone. Now. Vincent's voice was firm, commanding, the voice that had run an organization, made decisions that affected hundreds of people. Boss, we don't know who she is, Tony protested. This could be. I said now. Vincent guided the woman inside, kicking the door shut behind them. She was shaking uncontrollably, her teeth chattering. Thank you, she managed. Thank you, I'm so sorry, I just... Save your strength, Vincent told her, guiding her toward the sofa Tony had just vacated. Sit down before you fall down. Tony was already on the phone, pacing near the windows, speaking in rapid Italian. Vincent grabbed the cashmere throw from the back of the sofa and wrapped it around the woman's shoulders. She clutched it like a lifeline, her eyes darting around the room, taking in the expensive furniture, the artwork, the subtle signs of wealth and power. He watched her piece it together, watched the moment she realized this wasn't just some random Good Samaritan's apartment. What's your name? Vincent asked, keeping his voice gentle despite the questions racing through his mind. Emma, she said after a hesitation. Emma Chen. Emma, I'm Vincent. That's Tony. He gestured to his associate, who was still on the phone, arguing with Dr. Caruso about coming out in the storm. Can you tell me what happened to you? Her jaw tightened, and for a moment, he thought she might refuse. Then, I ran, and I didn't know where I was, and I saw your light, and her voice cracked. I knocked on your door. I'm sorry. I didn't know where else to go. There was a story there, one she wasn't telling. Vincent had been around enough desperate people to recognize when someone was running from something, or someone. Who are you running from, Emma? Her eyes widened, fear flashing across her face. I can't. If I tell you, if he finds out I came here, he'll... She stopped herself, pulling the blanket tighter. Tony ended his call and approached. Doc's coming, says 20 minutes in this weather. Good. Vincent stood, moving to the bar to pour water. When he returned, Emma was staring at her hands, at the ring still on her finger. A large diamond that caught the light. A wedding ring. Fresh. This wasn't just any runaway. This was a runaway bride. Vincent handed her the water. Drink. Slowly. She obeyed, her hands shaking so badly that water sloshed over the rim. He noticed she was barefoot, her feet cut and bleeding on his pristine hardwood floor. What had she gone through to end up at his door? Emma, he said carefully, crouching so he was at her eye level. I need you to understand something. You knocked on a particular door tonight. My door. And while I'm going to help you, he paused, making sure she was listening. I need to know if you're bringing trouble to it. She met his eyes, and he saw intelligence there beneath the fear. She wasn't naive. She understood the question beneath the question. I didn't know whose door this was, she said quietly. I just saw light and I needed help. But yes, I'm bringing trouble. The kind of trouble that... She took a shaky breath. The kind that doesn't stop looking. Tony swore under his breath. Vincent raised a hand, silencing him. Then we're going to need the whole story, Vincent said. But first we're going to get you warm and let the doctor check you over. Can you do that? Can you trust us that long? It was a strange question to ask a terrified woman who'd stumbled into a stranger's home. But Emma seemed to understand that trust was a commodity here, something traded rather than freely given. Do I have a choice? She asked. Not rudely, but realistically. Vincent almost smiled. There's always a choice, Emma. You can walk out that door right now if you want. But I'm guessing whoever, you ran from is still out there looking. She closed her eyes and a single tear escaped down her cheek. His name is Marcus Delacroix. He's a prosecutor. And this morning I married him. The name hit Vincent like cold water. Marcus Delacroix. Assistant District Attorney Marcus Delacroix, the rising star in the Manhattan DA's office. The man who'd made his career prosecuting organized crime, who'd been on the news just last month announcing a major indictment. Vincent kept his expression neutral, but his mind was racing. This wasn't just trouble, this was a hurricane. And you're running from him on your wedding night, Vincent said slowly. Why? Emma opened her eyes, and what he saw there was pure, crystallized terror mixed with rage. Because during the reception, I overheard him on the phone. I heard him say, "Don't worry, she won't be a problem much longer. After tonight, everything will look like an accident." The room fell silent, except for the rain hammering against the windows. "He was talking about me," Emma continued, her voice steady now, powered by anger. "My husband of 6 hours was planning to kill me." Dr. Caruso arrived exactly 23 minutes later, a small miracle given the weather. He was in his 60s, with silver hair and the steady hands of someone who'd spent decades dealing with situations that never made it into medical textbooks. "Vincent," he greeted, shaking off his umbrella in the entryway. His eyes immediately found Emma on the sofa. "And who is our patient?" "Emma," Vincent supplied. "She's had a difficult evening." Dr. Caruso had worked with the Romano family for 30 years. He knew when not to ask questions. "Let's have a look then. Miss Emma, I'm Dr. Caruso. I'm going to examine you, make sure nothing's broken. Is that all right?" Emma nodded, grateful for his gentle demeanor. Vincent and Tony moved to give them space, but stayed close enough to hear Dr. Caruso's quiet commentary as he worked. "Bruised ribs, probably from a fall. Sprained ankle, moderate. These cuts on your feet will need cleaning. You're hypothermic. When's the last time you were warm and dry?" "This morning," Emma said softly. "Before the wedding." Vincent leaned against the window, watching the doctor work while his mind processed the situation. Marcus Delacroix. Of all the doors in Brooklyn, this runaway bride had knocked on his. The universe had a twisted sense of humor. Tony appeared at his elbow, speaking low. "Boss, this is bad. Delacroix is connected. If she's telling the truth, then he's dirty," Vincent finished. "And desperate. Dirty cops are the most dangerous kind. We should call." "No one. Not yet." Vincent kept his voice barely above a whisper. "We don't know who Delacroix is working with. One call to the wrong person and we're all exposed." "So what? We just keep her here?" Tony's frustration was evident. "Vincent, she's a liability. If Delacroix finds out she came here, he won't." "Not from us." Vincent turned to face his oldest friend, his second in command, the man who'd stood beside him through territorial wars and FBI investigations. "Tony, I know what you're thinking, but look at her." They both glanced at Emma, who was wincing as Dr. Caruso examined her ankle. "She knocked on the wrong door," Vincent continued. "She didn't know who I was, what I do, any of it. She just needed help. And maybe," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "maybe this is exactly what I've been looking for." Tony's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" "I mean, Delacroix has been a thorn in our side for 2 years. Every legitimate business deal, every attempt to go clean, he finds a way to investigate, to delay, to make us look dirty even when we're not. And now his wife lands on my doorstep telling me he's corrupt?" Vincent shook his head slowly. "That's not coincidence, Tony. That's opportunity. Or a trap. Maybe. That's what we need to find out." Dr. Caruso approached, medical bag in hand. "She'll be fine. Rest, warmth, and time. Those ribs will hurt for a few weeks, but nothing's broken. The ankle should heal in 10 days or so. I've given her something mild for the pain and the shock." He lowered his voice. "Whatever happened to her, Vincent, it wasn't an accident. Those bruises on her arms? Someone grabbed her. Hard." Vincent's jaw tightened. He'd seen those kinds of bruises before. "Thanks, Doc. Send me the bill." "There is no bill, not for this." Dr. Caruso glanced at Emma, then back at Vincent. "Just be careful. She's fragile right now." After the doctor left, Emma dozed fitfully on the sofa, the pain medication making her drowsy. Vincent dimmed the lights, left a bottle of water on the coffee table, and retreated to his study with Tony. The study was Vincent's thinking space, walls lined with books, a desk that had belonged to his grandfather, and a window that overlooked the garden below. Rain pattered against the glass as Vincent poured 2 fingers of scotch for himself and Tony. "All right," Tony said, settling into one of the leather chairs. Let's say she's telling the truth. Let's say Delacroix really tried to harm her. Why? That's the question. Vincent stood at the window thinking. Delacroix is ambitious. Young, charismatic, everything the media loves. He's being groomed for bigger things. Maybe federal prosecutor, maybe even Congress eventually. So why marry someone just to hurt them? Money? Life insurance? Maybe she knew something she wasn't supposed to know. Vincent turned from the window. Or maybe she was a liability for his career in some other way. Tony pulled out his phone. I'll make some calls. Quietly. See what I can find out about her background. Do it carefully. Delacroix has ears everywhere. Don't I know it? Tony muttered, already typing. Vincent sipped his scotch, his mind working through possibilities. Marcus Delacroix had built his career prosecuting organized crime, but he'd always seemed convenient. Too convenient. He went after the right targets at the right times, but never quite made the big cases stick. Indictments that fell apart at trial. Evidence that mysteriously disappeared. What if Delacroix wasn't fighting organized crime? What if he was managing it? The thought crystallized as Vincent watched Emma sleep. She'd stumbled into something bigger than she realized, and so had he. Around 11 p.m., Emma stirred. Vincent had been reading, or pretending to read, a biography of Teddy Roosevelt while keeping one eye on her. She sat up slowly, wincing. How do you feel? Vincent asked from his chair. She looked around, momentarily disoriented, then remembered. Like I got hit by a truck, but alive. Her eyes focused on him. Thank you for helping me, for not turning me away. You needed help. I provided it. He set down his book. Are you hungry? When's the last time you ate? Emma considered. Breakfast. Before hair and makeup. A bitter laugh. Couldn't eat at the reception. Too nervous. I'll order something. Vincent stood, moving toward the kitchen, but Emma's voice stopped him. Mr. Romano. He turned. She was sitting up straighter. The blanket still wrapped around her shoulders, but there was steel in her voice now. You know who I am, who my husband is, and you still helped me. She paused. Why? Vincent leaned against the doorframe, studying her. In the soft lamplight, with her hair dried and tangled around her face, she looked younger than he'd first thought. Vulnerable, but not broken. You knocked on my door asking for help, he said simply. I'm many things, Emma, but I'm not the kind of man who turns away someone in need. Even when that someone brings trouble? Especially then. They held each other's gaze, an understanding passing between them that had nothing to do with words. Emma was smart enough to know she was still in danger. Vincent was experienced enough to know that the moment he'd opened that door, he'd chosen a side. I need to tell you everything, Emma said. If you're going to help me, if you're going to let me stay, you deserve to know what you're getting into. Vincent moved back to his chair, settling in. I'm listening. Emma took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. I met Marcus 2 years ago at a charity gala. I was working as a coordinator for non-profit fundraisers. Still am, actually. Was. She corrected herself. He was charming, successful, everything I thought I wanted. I grew up in foster care, bounced around a lot, never had stability. Marcus represented everything I'd dreamed about. Security, family, a real home. Vincent listened without interrupting, noting the way her hands twisted in the blanket. He pursued me hard. Flowers, surprise trips, meeting his colleagues and friends. It felt like a fairy tale. When he proposed last Christmas, I thought I was the luckiest woman alive. She laughed bitterly. How naive was I? You weren't naive, Vincent said quietly. You trusted someone, that's different. Emma met his eyes, something flickering in her expression. Gratitude, maybe, or recognition that he understood. The wedding was beautiful, she continued. Everything I'd wanted. My friends were there, the few I have. Marcus's family, his colleagues from the DA's office. Everyone was so happy. Her voice caught. During the reception, I went looking for Marcus to do our first dance. I found him in a side room on his phone. The door was cracked open. I heard him say, "No, we stick to the plan. After we leave the reception during the drive, make it look like a carjacking gone wrong. She won't suffer. It'll be quick." Vincent kept his expression neutral, but inside, cold anger built. "You're certain he was talking about you?" "I heard my name, Vincent," he said. "Emma won't be a problem after tonight." And then he laughed. He laughed and said something about life insurance and getting everything cleaned up before the Serrano deal closes. She looked directly at Vincent. "Does that name mean anything to you?" "Serrano?" Vincent's blood ran cold. The Serrano cartel, a criminal organization that had been expanding into the New York territory for the past 3 years, bringing violence and chaos. They were the kind of organization Vincent had spent the last decade trying to distance his family from. Ruthless, unpredictable, and utterly without honor. It means something, Vincent said carefully. The Serranos are very bad people, Emma. If Delacroix is involved with them, then I'm dead if they find me. Emma's voice was flat, accepting. I know. That's why I ran. I slipped out during the reception, told the coordinator I needed air. I just started walking, then running. I didn't have my phone, my purse, nothing. Just the dress and blind panic. How did you end up in Brooklyn? I have no idea. I got on a subway, got off when I thought someone was following me, got on another one. Eventually I came up somewhere in Brooklyn. I walked until I couldn't walk anymore. She gestured around. And I ended up here, at your door. Vincent stood, moving to the window. The rain had eased to a drizzle. Somewhere out there, Marcus Delacroix was looking for his missing bride, and probably panicking, wondering what she'd heard, what she knew. Emma, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Vincent turned to face her. Did Delacroix ever mention my name? The Romano family? Anything that would indicate he knew who I was? Emma thought carefully. There was one time, maybe 6 months ago. He was on a call, frustrated about something. He said something like, the Romano transition is making things complicated. If they go completely legitimate, we lose our cover. She looked up at Vincent. I didn't understand what he meant then. I do now. Vincent's mind raced. Delacroix had been using the Romano family's past as cover for his own corruption. As long as there was organized crime to point fingers at, his own crimes could hide in the shadow. Vincent's push toward legitimacy threatened that cover, which meant Vincent and Emma had a common enemy. You can stay here tonight, Vincent said finally. Tomorrow we'll figure out next steps. But Emma, I need you to understand something. If you stay under my protection, if I help you against Delacroix, there's no going back. You'll be in this world at least for a while. It's not a pretty world. It's better than being dead, Emma said without hesitation. And honestly, after what Marcus did, what he planned to do, I don't care about pretty anymore. I care about being alive. I care about making sure he doesn't do this to anyone else. There was fire in her voice now, determination replacing fear. Vincent recognized that transformation. He'd seen it before, in people who'd been pushed too far and decided to push back. Then get some rest, Vincent told her. We'll talk more in the morning. He showed her to the guest room, a space that hadn't been used in months but was clean and comfortable. Emma stood in the doorway, still wrapped in his cashmere throw, looking small and tired and stubborn all at once. Vincent, she said, why are you really helping me? He could have given her any number of reasons. Because it was strategic, because Delacroix was a threat, because information was valuable. All true. Instead, he told her something closer to the whole truth. Because someone knocked on my door asking for help, and I still remember what it's like to need that. Emma nodded slowly, as if she understood there were layers to that answer she didn't know yet. Thank you, for being the kind of person who answers. After she closed the door, Vincent returned to his study where Tony was waiting with news. Found something interesting, Tony said, turning his laptop around. Emma Chen, 28 years old. Just like she said, foster care kid, bounced around New York and New Jersey. Got her degree in communications from QNY. Worked for a charity called Second Chances that helps at-risk youth. He scrolled down. No criminal record, no red flags. By all accounts, exactly who she says she is. And Delacroix? Tony's expression darkened. That's where it gets interesting. 2 years ago, right around when he met Emma, his financial situation changed dramatically. Before that, he was living paycheck to paycheck like most ADAs. Suddenly, he's got money for fancy dinners, trips to Europe. Eventually, an engagement ring that cost more than his annual salary. Serrano money, Vincent concluded. Has to be. I made some quiet inquiries. Word on the street is Delacroix has been protecting Serrano operations in exchange for cash and career advancement. The Serranos want a man on the inside, someone who can make problems disappear. Delacroix gives them that, they give him money and help him climb the ladder. And Emma? Tony pulled up another document. She's got a life insurance policy. $2 million. Delacroix took it out 6 months ago, named himself beneficiary. Vincent's hands clenched into fists. It was worse than he'd thought. Delacroix hadn't just wanted Emma dead for what she might have known. He'd planned it, insured it, was going to profit from it. There's more, Tony said quietly. I found an obituary from 15 years ago. Karen Winters, age 25, died in a car accident. She was engaged to Marcus Delacroix at the time. The words hung in the air like poison. "He's done this before," Vincent said softly. "Can't prove it. The case was closed as an accident. But the timing..." Tony shook his head. "Boss, this guy is a monster wearing a nice suit." Vincent moved to the window, looking out at the city lights blurred by rain. Somewhere out there, Marcus Delacroix was probably sitting in his apartment, wondering where his wife had gone, recalculating his plans. Vincent's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Looking for someone. Bride, late 20s, Asian, might be injured. Wearing a wedding dress. Disappeared from reception in Manhattan. If you see her, there's a finder's fee. Call this number. Vincent showed the text to Tony. He's already searching. Probably sent this to every connection he has in every borough. What do we do? Vincent deleted the text. Nothing. We don't respond. We don't acknowledge. As far as anyone knows, we're spending a quiet evening at home. And tomorrow? Tomorrow, we start building a case against a corrupt prosecutor. Vincent looked toward the hallway where Emma slept. Because she knocked on the wrong door. Vincent didn't sleep that night. He stayed in his study, making calls, pulling strings, activating a network of contacts he'd spent years cultivating. If he was going to protect Emma, he needed to know exactly what they were up against. Around 3 a.m., he got the information he'd been waiting for. Marcus Delacroix had reported his wife missing, claimed she'd been feeling overwhelmed, and wandered off during the reception. He was playing the concerned husband perfectly, had even convinced police to issue a notice despite the short time frame. But there were also whispers, quiet inquiries being made in less official channels, money being offered for information, the kind of search that had nothing to do with a worried husband and everything to do with containing a threat. Vincent stood at his window watching the sky slowly lighten, thinking about choices and consequences. He'd spent the last 10 years of his life trying to become someone his mother could be proud of, someone who could break the cycle of violence his father had perpetuated. He'd walked away from territories, from profitable but dirty ventures, had taken legitimate losses to build a legitimate future. And now, by choosing to help Emma, he was walking back toward that world. Not the same world, but dangerous, nonetheless. Was redemption worth protecting someone who'd knocked on his door by accident? As the sun began to rise, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Vincent realized the answer was yes. Maybe especially because it was by accident. Maybe that's what redemption looked like. Not grand gestures or calculated moves, but simply being the kind of person who helps when help is needed. Around 7 a.m., Emma emerged from the guest room. She was wearing clothes Vincent had asked Tony to pick up. Simple jeans and a sweater. Several sizes too large but clean and warm. Her hair was pulled back, and without the makeup from yesterday, she looked younger, more vulnerable. "Coffee?" Vincent offered, gesturing to the espresso machine. "Please." Emma sat at the kitchen island, watching him work. "Did you sleep?" "Not much." "You?" "A little." The pain medication helped. She accepted the cup he handed her, wrapped her hands around it like she had with the water last night. "I kept thinking I'd wake up and this would all be a nightmare. I'm sorry it's not." They drank their coffee in comfortable silence. Vincent had put on the news. Local station, volume low. The anchor was discussing weather and traffic, nothing about missing brides or desperate searches. Then Emma's face appeared on screen. Vincent turned up the volume. Marcus Delacroix stood at a podium looking haggard and concerned, the picture of a worried husband. "Emma, if you're watching this, please come home. I don't know what happened, what scared you, but whatever it is, we can work through it. I love you. Please, just let me know you're safe." The performance was flawless. Vincent watched Emma's face as she stared at the screen, watched the play of emotions, anger, betrayal, fear, and something else, determination. "He's good," she said quietly. "I almost believe him myself. That's what makes him dangerous." The news segment ended and Vincent turned off the television. "Emma, we need to make a decision. You can't stay here indefinitely without people noticing. Delacroix will expand his search, and eventually someone will remember seeing a woman in a wedding dress on the streets last night. We need a plan." Emma set down her coffee cup. "What are my options?" Vincent appreciated her directness. No tears, no panic, just practical assessment of a bad situation. Option 1, I can arrange for you to disappear. New identity, new city, new life. It won't be comfortable, and you'll have to leave everything behind, but you'll be safe. And Delacroix gets away with it, for now. Emma shook her head. Next option. Option 2, we go to the authorities. You tell them what you heard, what you know. I'll back you up with what I've learned about his connection to the Serranos. Will they believe me? A confused bride against a respected prosecutor? Emma's skepticism was justified. Probably not without more evidence, Vincent admitted. Which brings us to option 3. Which is? Vincent leaned against the counter, choosing his words carefully. We build a case, we gather evidence, we prove Delacroix is corrupt. We expose his connection to the Serranos. Then we take everything to the FBI. That could take months. It will take months, Vincent corrected. Maybe longer. During that time, you'll need to stay hidden, stay safe. It won't be easy. Emma was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Vincent let her process, understanding the weight of the decision she was facing. If we do this, Emma finally said, if we really go after him, I'll need to understand your world better. I'll need to know what I'm getting into, who I can trust, what the risks are. That's fair. And I'll need to contribute. I won't just hide and let you do everything. I want to be part of taking him down. She looked at Vincent with clear, determined eyes. This is my life, my fight. I need to be in it. Vincent felt something shift in his chest. Respect, maybe, or recognition. This woman who'd appeared on his doorstep broken and afraid had steel underneath. She wasn't asking to be saved. She was asking to save herself. All right, Vincent said. Option 3 it is. But Emma, you need to understand. Once we start this, there's no backing out. We'll be making enemies on multiple fronts. Delacroix will be desperate, the Serranos will be vengeful, and even people who should be on our side might not be. Are you prepared for that? Emma stood, straightening her shoulders despite the obvious pain in her ribs. Marcus planned to murder me on our wedding night. Whatever comes next, I'm already prepared for it. Vincent extended his hand. Then let's get to work. Emma shook it, her grip firm despite her injuries. And in that moment, in his kitchen with the morning light streaming through windows and the city waking up outside, an unlikely alliance was forged. Neither of them knew yet that this handshake would change everything, not just their lives, but the entire landscape of organized crime and corruption in New York. They didn't know about the betrayals to come, the sacrifices they'd have to make, or the ways they'd transform each other. All they knew was that a woman had knocked on the wrong door, and a man had chosen to answer. Sometimes that's how the most important stories begin. As they started planning their next moves, Vincent's phone buzzed again. Another text, another search query about the missing bride. Vincent deleted it without responding, but he saved the number, because eventually, when they were ready, when they had what they needed, he was going to call Marcus Delacroix himself. And when he did, the prosecutor would learn what happened to predators who hurt innocent people. Vincent Romano might be working toward redemption, but he hadn't forgotten how to fight, and now he had something worth fighting for. The storm had passed. Through the window, sunlight broke through the clouds, painting the city in gold. A new day, a new beginning. Emma caught him looking at the light. What are you thinking? Vincent turned to her with something that might have been a smile. I'm thinking that sometimes the universe has a strange way of giving us exactly what we need. You needed shelter. I needed a reason. A reason for what? To remember why I wanted to change in the first place, Vincent said quietly. To remember that power isn't about control or fear. It's about protecting people who need protecting. Emma nodded slowly. Then let's make sure we protect each other. Deal. The morning stretched into afternoon as Emma and Vincent sat in his study. The door closed. The world outside continuing as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed, at least for the two people in that room. Vincent had made more coffee, had Tony bring in breakfast from a nearby cafe, pastries and fruit that Emma picked at while she talked. And she did talk, finally letting the story spill out in a way she hadn't been able to the night before, when survival had been the only thing on her mind. I should have seen the signs, Emma said, staring into her third cup of coffee. Looking back now, they're so obvious, but when you're in it, when you want something to be true so badly, Vincent leaned back in his chair, listening. He'd learned long ago that sometimes the best thing you could do for someone was simply witness their story without judgment. Tell me about the signs, he said gently. Emma set down her cup, gathering her thoughts. Marcus was always careful about his phone. I thought it was just work stuff, confidentiality, attorney-client privilege, but he'd leave rooms to take calls, would close his laptop if I walked by. I told myself it was normal, that I was being paranoid. She stood, moving to the window where rain had started again. A light drizzle this time, gentle against the glass. Then there were the nights he'd come home late, smelling like expensive cigars and cologne that wasn't his. He'd say he'd been networking, meeting with colleagues. I believed him because I wanted to believe him. When did you start to doubt? Vincent asked. About 3 months ago. Emma turned from the window. I was helping organize a fundraiser for Second Chances. That's the nonprofit where I work. We needed auction items, and I thought Marcus might be able to get us something from the DA's office. Maybe a chance to shadow a prosecutor for a day or something. I went to surprise him at his office. Vincent could see where this was going, but he let her continue at her own pace. His secretary seemed nervous when she saw me. Said Marcus was in a meeting and couldn't be disturbed. But I heard his voice through the door and he was alone. I waited for 20 minutes and nobody came out. When I finally knocked, he opened the door looking flustered. His office was empty, but his window was open. We're on the 3rd floor, and I could see someone had been smoking in there. You asked him about it? He said he'd been on a conference call with someone who was smoking, that the smell came through the speakers. Emma laughed without humor. I actually believed that explanation. How stupid was I? You weren't stupid, Vincent said firmly. You trusted someone who manipulated that trust. That's not a character flaw, Emma. That's human nature. She met his eyes, and he saw gratitude there mixed with residual shame. Marcus was good at making me feel like my concerns were unreasonable. You're being paranoid, Emma. You're stressed, Emma. Don't you trust me, Emma? He'd turn it around until I was apologizing for doubting him. Vincent recognized the pattern. He'd seen it before in associates who'd been compromised, in people who'd been slowly isolated and controlled. That's called gaslighting. It's a manipulation tactic. I know that now. Emma returned to her seat. After that incident, I started paying more attention. I noticed things, unexplained money, designer clothes he'd say were gifts from grateful clients, weekend trips he'd take alone for work. And I never said anything because I didn't want to be that girlfriend, that fiancé, the suspicious one. But you were gathering information, Vincent observed. Emma nodded, almost unconsciously at first. I'd remember dates, note inconsistencies. I started keeping a journal, just writing down things that seemed off. Nothing concrete, just a record. She paused. That journal is in my apartment, along with everything else from my life. We can't risk you going back there, Vincent said immediately. Delacroix will have someone watching it. I know. Emma's voice was small. Everything I own, every photo from my childhood, the few things I have from my foster families, it's all there, and I can't get to any of it. Vincent watched her struggle with the loss, understanding it went deeper than mere possessions. Those items represented her entire identity, her history, proof that she existed beyond what Marcus had tried to make her. What about friends? Vincent asked. Family? Anyone who might be looking for you beyond Delacroix? Emma was quiet for a moment. I have friends from work, from college, but Marcus, he always found reasons why I shouldn't see them as much. They don't understand our lifestyle, Emma. They're jealous, Emma. You're growing beyond them, Emma. She shook her head. I let him isolate me. By the time I realized what was happening, I'd already lost most of my support system. That's part of the pattern too, Vincent said. Abusers isolate their targets. Makes it easier to control them, harder for them to leave. Are you speaking from experience? The question caught Vincent off guard. He considered deflecting, but something in Emma's directness made him want to match it with his own honesty. My father, Vincent said slowly, was a man who believed in absolute control over his business, his family, his territory. My mother stayed because she had nowhere else to go, no one else to turn to. He'd made sure of that. He met Emma's eyes. I spent the first half of my life watching that dynamic, learning from it. Spent the second half trying to unlearn it. Is that why you're helping me? Because of your mother? Partly. Vincent stood, moving to the bookshelf where a photo sat. His mother at her 60th birthday, smiling, surrounded by family. But also because I know what it's like to be trapped in a life someone else designed for you, to feel like there's no way out. Emma joined him at the bookshelf, studying the photo. She looks happy. She is now, but it took her 40 years to get there. Vincent replaced the frame carefully. After my father died, she finally started living for herself. Started a garden, joined a church group, made friends who weren't connected to the family business. She became who she was always meant to be. Do you think that's possible for me? Emma asked quietly. Becoming who I'm meant to be after all this? Vincent turned to face her fully. Emma, you ran from someone who was planning to harm you, escaped in a wedding dress through a city you didn't know, and ended up finding help against impossible odds. You survived. And now you're choosing to fight back. He paused. I'd say you're already becoming exactly who you're meant to be. Tony arrived around 2 p.m. with lunch and information. He'd spent the morning making discreet inquiries, building a picture of Marcus Delacroix's activities and connections. They ate in the dining room, sandwiches from a deli Tony knew. Nothing fancy but substantial. Emma ate with more appetite than she'd shown at breakfast, a good sign that shock was giving way to determination. "All right," Tony said, opening his laptop. "Here's what I've learned. Marcus Delacroix, 35 years old, graduated Columbia Law, top of his class. Joined the Manhattan DA's office 8 years ago. Steady rise through the ranks. Made ADA in 5 years, which is fast but not suspicious." Vincent listened, noting the timeline. What changed 3 years ago? That's the interesting part. Tony pulled up a document. 3 years ago, there was a case against a mid-level distributor named Carlos Mendez. Should have been simple. Caught with product, clear evidence, multiple witnesses. Delacroix was the lead prosecutor. "Let me guess," Emma said. "The case fell apart. Witnesses recanted, evidence was mishandled, Mendez walked." Tony looked up. 6 months later, Mendez was identified as a key player in the Serrano organization's expansion into New York. Vincent's jaw tightened. Delacroix threw the case on purpose. Has to be. And it gets better, or worse, depending on how you look at it. Over the past 3 years, Delacroix has prosecuted 14 cases involving individuals later connected to the Serranos. Of those 14, 11 resulted in acquittals or dismissed charges. But his conviction rate overall? Vincent asked. 78%. He wins cases against everyone except Serrano people. Tony closed the laptop. He's protecting them while maintaining the appearance of being tough on crime. Emma had gone pale. "I married a man who was helping criminals go free. Who knows how many people were hurt because of cases he threw." "That's not on you," Vincent said immediately. "You didn't know. You couldn't have known. But I should have." "Emma," Vincent's voice was firm but not harsh. "Delacroix is a professional manipulator. That's how he's gotten away with this for 3 years. You're a victim here, not an accomplice." Tony cleared his throat. "There's more. I looked into that previous engagement. Karen Winters, 25, marketing executive, engaged to Delacroix 15 years ago. Died in a single-car accident on Highway 80 in New Jersey." "Accident?" Emma repeated hollowly. "Police report says she lost control on a curve, went off the road. No other vehicles involved, no witnesses. Delacroix was supposedly at a law school study group at the time." Tony pulled up the police report. "But here's what's interesting. Karen's life insurance paid out $500,000. Delacroix was the beneficiary." Vincent stood, pacing. "He's done this before. Maybe not exactly the same way, but the pattern is there. Get involved with someone, insure them heavily, arrange an accident." "But why Emma specifically?" Tony asked. "He could have anyone. Why target her?" Emma had been quiet, but now she spoke. "Because I was perfect. No family to ask questions. No close friends thanks to his isolation tactics, and I worked for a charity. Made him look good. The caring prosecutor who supports vulnerable youth." Her voice was bitter. "I wasn't a person to him. I was a prop in his political career, and eventually a payday." The room fell silent. Vincent watched Emma process this, watched her move from self-blame to anger to something harder and more focused. "How much insurance did he take out on me?" she asked Tony. $2 million. Policy taken out 6 months ago, right after he proposed. Emma's hands clenched. He was planning this from the beginning. The proposal, the wedding, all of it. Just setting up the crime. Vincent returned to his seat, his mind working through the implications. "The question is, why now? Why go through with it yesterday?" "I might have an answer to that," Tony said, pulling up another document. "There's been chatter about a major Serrano expansion deal. They're looking to take over distribution in 3 new territories, including parts of Brooklyn. It's a multi-million-dollar operation, and they need political cover to pull it off. Delacroix needs money to help facilitate that," Vincent concluded. $2 million in insurance money plus whatever they're paying him directly. "And he needs to not have any distractions or vulnerabilities," Emma added. "A wife who might ask questions, who might notice things, who might become a liability." Vincent nodded slowly. "So he solves all his problems at once. Gets the money, eliminates the potential witness, and probably gains sympathy that helps his political career. The grieving widower, tragic story, media attention." "That's sick," Tony muttered. "That's calculated," Vincent corrected. "And it means we're not just dealing with a corrupt prosecutor. We're dealing with someone who plans complex operations, who thinks strategically, who's willing to end lives for money and power." Emma stood abruptly, moving to the window. Vincent could see tension in her shoulders the way she wrapped her arms around herself. He gave her a moment before joining her. "I know this is overwhelming," he said quietly. "I'm not overwhelmed. I'm angry." Emma turned to face him and her eyes blazed. "Marcus took everything from me. My trust, my safety, my life. He turned me into a victim, into a problem to be solved, and he almost succeeded. But he didn't. No, because I knocked on your door." Emma took a breath. "Vincent, I need you to understand something. I'm not looking for revenge. I'm not interested in becoming like Marcus or the people he works for. But I am going to make sure he faces consequences. I'm going to make sure everyone knows what he did, what he is." Vincent saw the determination in her face, the steel beneath the vulnerability. "That's going to require patience, and strategy, and time. I have all three. What I don't have is a plan." Emma looked at him expectantly. "That's where you come in." They spent the afternoon in Vincent's study, mapping out a strategy. Tony contributed his knowledge of information gathering, Vincent his understanding of how criminal organizations operated, and Emma her insights into Marcus's routines and vulnerabilities. "First priority is keeping you safe," Vincent said, writing on a legal pad. "Delacroix will be searching, and he has resources. We need to make sure you're completely off the grid." "I can't stay here indefinitely," Emma pointed out. "Eventually, someone will notice you have a house guest." "Agreed. We'll need to move you somewhere more secure within a few days." Vincent made a note. "I have properties that aren't connected to my name. Investments through shell companies, perfectly legal but private. We can set you up in one of those." Tony nodded. "I can arrange supplies, make sure you have everything you need without creating a paper trail. Second priority is gathering evidence," Vincent continued. "We need to prove Delacroix is corrupt, that he's working with the Serranos, and if possible that he was planning to harm you." "The phone call I overheard," Emma said. "Is that enough?" "It's a start, but it's your word against his, and he'll claim you misunderstood or were stressed." Vincent tapped the pad with his pen. "We need documentation, financial records, communication logs, anything that ties him directly to the Serranos." "I might be able to help with that," Emma said slowly. "Marcus kept files at our apartment, she corrected herself. "He thought I didn't know about them, but I found them once when I was looking for our tax documents. They were in a locked drawer in his study." "What kind of files?" "I don't know. I didn't open them. The drawer was locked, and I didn't want him to know I'd tried to access them." Emma leaned forward. "But if those files contain what I think they might—" "It's too dangerous," Vincent said immediately. "Delacroix will have that apartment under surveillance. The moment you show up, he'll know. Then we get the files another way," Tony suggested. "I know people who can get in and out without being noticed." Vincent considered it. Breaking into a prosecutor's apartment was risky, but if those files contained evidence of corruption— "Let's table that for now. Third priority is building a coalition. We can't do this alone." "Who would you trust with this?" Emma asked. "There are FBI agents who've been watching the Serranos building cases. If we can bring them solid evidence, they'll have the resources to investigate properly." Vincent looked at Emma. "But once we involve federal agents, this becomes official. You'd need to be prepared to testify, to have your life examined, to become a witness." "I'm prepared for that." "Are you?" Vincent's tone was gentle but serious. "Because witness protection isn't what you see in movies, Emma. It's isolation, new identity, leaving everything behind permanently. And even then, there are no guarantees." Emma was quiet, processing this. "What's the alternative?" "We could gather enough evidence to approach Delacroix directly. Offer him a choice. Resign quietly, disappear, and we don't pursue legal action. He gets to walk away and you get your life back. Except he doesn't face consequences for what he did," Emma said. "And he's free to do it to someone else." "True. Then that's not an option." Emma's voice was firm. "I want him to face justice. Real justice, not a backroom deal." Vincent felt a swell of respect for her. "Then we build an airtight case and hand it to the FBI. But Emma, that's going to take months. Maybe longer. During that time you'll be in hiding, cut off from your old life, dependent on people you barely know. Can you handle that?" Emma met his eyes steadily. "Can you? Because you're putting yourself at risk too. Delacroix will figure out eventually that I came here, that you're helping me. What happens to your life, your business, your family?" It was a fair question. Vincent had been asking himself the same thing since last night. "My family will understand," he said finally. "And my business is structured to withstand scrutiny. I've made sure of that." As for the risk, he paused. I've spent 10 years trying to leave behind my father's legacy, trying to become someone better, helping you, taking down someone like Delacroix. That's exactly who I want to be. A protector, Emma said softly. A human being who does the right thing when it matters. Vincent stood. Now let's talk about immediate next steps. Tony, I need you to reach out to Michael Costello at the FBI. Feel him out, see if he'd be receptive to information about public corruption. Costello's good people, Tony confirmed. I'll set up a meet. Emma, I need you to write down everything you remember about that phone call. Exact words if possible, time, location, anything that might help verify your account. Vincent handed her a notebook. Also, make a list of anyone in your life who might be able to corroborate changes in Marcus's behavior. Unexplained money, anything unusual. My friend Sarah might be able to help, Emma said. She's a paralegal, works at a different firm. We used to be close before Marcus. Before he convinced me we didn't have much in common anymore. Can you trust her? I think so. She tried to stay in touch even when I pulled away. She's loyal. Vincent made a note. We'll approach her carefully. But first you need to rest. You've been through trauma, Emma. Your body needs time to heal. I slept last night, and you're running on adrenaline and coffee. Vincent interrupted. Trust me, I know the signs. You're going to crash soon, and it won't be pretty. Take this afternoon, rest properly, let yourself process everything. Emma looked like she might argue, but then exhaustion seemed to hit her all at once. She nodded. Maybe you're right. I feel like I've been awake for days. You kind of have, Tony pointed out. Trauma does that, keeps you wired until the immediate danger passes, then you collapse. After Emma retreated to the guest room, Vincent and Tony remained in the study. You sure about this, boss? Tony asked quietly. Once we start pulling threads on Delacroix, there's no putting them back. I'm sure. It's going to get complicated. The Serranos won't take kindly to us interfering with their asset. And if Delacroix has other connections we don't know about, I know the risks, Tony. Vincent poured 2 glasses of scotch, handed one to his friend. But I can't walk away from this. She needs help, and we're in a position to provide it. Tony accepted the glass, studying Vincent. This is about more than just doing the right thing, isn't it? Vincent considered the question. Maybe. Maybe it's about proving to myself that I'm really capable of being better. Or maybe it's about Emma specifically. She reminds me of someone. Who? Me, 20 years ago. Trapped in a life I didn't choose. Surrounded by people who wanted to use me for their own purposes. Wondering if there was any way out. Vincent sipped his scotch. Someone helped me then. My mother, actually. She stood up to my father. Told him I could choose my own path. It cost her a lot. But she did it anyway. And now you're paying it forward. Something like that. Vincent set down his glass. Make the call to Costello. Let's see if the FBI is interested in a corrupt prosecutor. Evening came, bringing with it a news broadcast that changed everything. Vincent was in his study, reviewing financial documents for one of his legitimate businesses, when Tony called him to the living room. The television was on, volume turned up, and Marcus Delacroix filled the screen. He stood at a podium outside what looked like the Manhattan DA's office, surrounded by media. His tie was loosened, his expression haggard, the perfect image of a man under stress. I'm making this statement, Marcus said, his voice catching slightly, because I'm desperate. My wife, Emma Chen, has been missing for over 24 hours now. Police are conducting a search, but I'm appealing directly to the public. Vincent watched the performance with professional detachment. The catch in the voice, the loosened tie, the subtle signs of someone who hadn't slept, all carefully calculated to generate sympathy. Emma, if you're watching this, Marcus continued, looking directly into the camera, please come home. Or if you can't come home, just let someone know you're safe. I don't care about anything except knowing you're okay. He paused, and when he continued, his voice was stronger. To anyone watching, Emma is 5'6", approximately 120 pounds, with long black hair. She was last seen wearing a wedding dress. She may be confused, possibly injured. If you see her, please call this number immediately. A tip line number appeared on the screen. There's a reward, Marcus added, $50,000 for information leading to Emma's safe return, because I just want my wife back. The broadcast cut to a reporter. This desperate plea from ADA Marcus Delacroix comes 24 hours after his new bride disappeared during their wedding reception. Police say there's no evidence of foul play, but concern is growing. Anyone with information is urged to contact. Vincent muted the television. Tony was standing by the window, his expression grim. 50,000, Tony said. That's going to generate a lot of tips, a lot of eyes looking. That's the point. Vincent pulled out his phone, quickly typing a message. He's escalating, putting pressure on. If Emma's out there, he wants someone to spot her and report it. What are you doing? Warning everyone in the organization. If anyone sees inquiries about a missing bride, they report to me immediately. I need to know if Delacroix's search is getting close. Emma appeared in the doorway, drawn by the sound of the television. She was wearing the oversized sweater and jeans, her hair still damp from a shower. That was him, wasn't it? I heard his voice. Vincent nodded. He's going public, offering a reward. Emma moved to the television, staring at the frozen image of Marcus on screen. He looks genuinely worried. That's the danger of people like him, Vincent said. They believe their own performance. In his mind, he's probably convinced himself that he's the victim here. The victim, Emma repeated bitterly. He tries to end my life and somehow he's the victim. That's how narcissists work, Tony offered. Everything that goes wrong is someone else's fault. Everything that happens to them is an injustice. Emma wrapped her arms around herself. $50,000. That's a lot of money for a lot of people. How long before someone who saw me last night puts the pieces together? Hard to say, Vincent admitted, but we need to assume the clock is ticking faster now. Tony, move up the timeline on relocating Emma. I want it done by tomorrow night. I'll make the arrangements. Emma turned from the television. Where will I be going? A property in Red Hook, industrial area, mostly warehouses and converted lofts. It's registered under a company name, no connection to me or the family. You'll have everything you need, and Tony can check on you regularly without raising suspicion. How long will I need to stay there? Vincent met her eyes. However long it takes, could be weeks, could be months. Emma nodded slowly, processing this. And what will you be doing while I'm hiding? Building the case, making connections, gathering evidence. Vincent paused, and making sure Delacroix doesn't find you. He's going to figure it out eventually, Emma said. That I came here, that you're helping me. What then? It was the question Vincent had been avoiding, but Emma deserved honesty. Then things get more complicated. Delacroix will try to discredit me, claim I'm involved in your disappearance for my own purposes. He'll use his position to investigate me, probably try to revive old allegations about the family business. In other words, I'm destroying your life too. No, Vincent said firmly. Delacroix is the one destroying lives. You're just trying to survive, and I'm choosing to help. Those are very different things. Emma looked between Vincent and Tony, these two men who'd taken her in when she'd had nowhere else to go. Why are you really doing this? Both of you. You don't know me. I'm just someone who knocked on a door. Tony glanced at Vincent, then back to Emma. Boss has his reasons. Mine are simpler. He says you need help, I help. That's how family works. And your reasons? Emma asked Vincent. Vincent considered how to answer. The truth was complicated, layered with his own need for redemption, his desire to prove he was different from his father, his recognition of himself in Emma's situation. But beneath all that was something simpler. Because you knocked on my door asking for help, he said, and I'm trying to be the kind of person who answers. The rest of the evening was spent preparing for Emma's move. Tony left to arrange the Red Hook location, while Vincent helped Emma understand what the next few weeks would look like. The apartment will be secure, Vincent explained, showing her photos on his laptop. 2 bedrooms, full kitchen, everything you'll need. Internet access is through a VPN. Secure, but no social media, no contact with anyone from your old life. Emma studied the photos. The space looked modern but sparse, functional rather than warm. It looks lonely. It will be, Vincent admitted. That's the hardest part. But it's temporary, Emma. We'll get through this. We, Emma repeated. You keep saying we, because it is we. You're not in this alone. Emma was quiet for a moment. I've been alone most of my life, you know. Foster care teaches you to be self-sufficient, to not depend on people because they leave, or they let you down, or they use you. She looked up at Vincent. I'm not used to someone saying we and meaning it. Vincent understood that kind of isolation, that learned independence born from abandonment. I meant it, and I'll keep meaning it, even when things get difficult. Why? It was the same question she'd asked before, but this time Vincent gave a different answer. Because maybe we both need to learn that we is possible, that not everyone leaves, that sometimes people show up and stay. The vulnerability in that admission surprised even Vincent, but Emma nodded, as if recognizing the truth in it. Then, we're both learning, she said softly. Tony returned around 10 p.m. with news. Red Hook apartment is ready. I've stocked it with food, clothes in your size. Basics, nothing fancy. Burner phone with 3 numbers programmed, mine, Vincent's, and Dr. Caruso's in case of emergency. When do I leave? Emma asked. Tomorrow evening. I'll drive you, make sure no one follows. Tony handed her a bag. New clothes for the move. We don't want anyone remembering the woman in the oversized sweater. Emma took the bag, holding it like it contained both her salvation and her prison sentence. This is really happening. I'm going into hiding. Just for now, Vincent assured her. Just until we have what we need to bring Delacroix down. And if we don't? If we can't find enough evidence? Vincent exchanged a glance with Tony. They'd discussed this possibility, had planned for contingencies. Then we find another way. But we're not there yet. Let's focus on the plan we have. Emma nodded, but Vincent could see the fear beneath her determination. She was trying to be strong, to match their confidence, but she was 28 years old, had narrowly escaped someone trying to harm her, and was about to disappear into a strange apartment with no certainty about when, or if, her normal life would return. Emma, Vincent said gently, you can do this. I know it's frightening, but you're stronger than you think. How do you know that? Because you're still standing. After everything Delacroix put you through, after running in the rain, after facing the truth about him, you're still here, still fighting. That takes incredible strength. Emma's eyes glistened, but she blinked back tears. I don't feel strong. I feel terrified. Strong people feel terrified too. They just don't let the terror stop them. Vincent moved closer, his voice gentle. You don't have to be brave all the time. You don't have to pretend this isn't scary. But know that you're not facing it alone. Promise? Emma's voice was small. Promise. They spent Emma's last evening in the brownstone playing cards, a strange normalcy in the midst of chaos. Tony taught Emma a complicated Italian card game his grandmother had taught him, and they laughed when she consistently beat them both. You're a natural, Tony said, shuffling for another round. Or you're both terrible teachers, Emma countered, a genuine smile crossing her face for the first time since she'd arrived. Vincent watched her smile, watched the brief moment where she forgot about Marcus and danger and the uncertain future. These moments mattered, he thought. In the midst of crisis, these small instances of normalcy and connection, these were what kept people human. Around midnight, Emma yawned, exhaustion finally catching up. I should sleep. Big day tomorrow. Big day, Vincent agreed. Emma, before you go, thank you. She paused at the doorway. For what? For trusting us. For knocking on my door. For being brave enough to fight back. Vincent smiled slightly. You've reminded me why this work matters. Emma returned the smile. Then we're even. You've reminded me that good people still exist. After she'd gone to bed, Vincent and Tony sat in the study with glasses of scotch, the comfortable silence of old friends. She's going to be okay, Tony said finally. The girl's got backbone. She does, Vincent agreed. But this is going to be harder on her than she realizes. Isolation, uncertainty, fear, it wears on people. Then we make sure she doesn't wear too thin. Check-ins, supplies, whatever she needs. Tony studied Vincent. You care about her. I care about justice. It can be both. Tony finished his scotch. Just be careful, boss. This situation is complicated enough without personal feelings getting involved. Vincent knew Tony was right, but he also knew it was too late for that warning. The moment he'd opened his door to a terrified woman in a wedding dress, the moment he'd chosen to help rather than turn away, he'd become personally involved. There was no untangling that now. We'll be careful, Vincent said, but we're also not abandoning her. Didn't suggest we should. Just saying, keep your eyes open. For her sake and ours. After Tony left, Vincent stood at his window watching the city lights, thinking about the chain of events that had brought Emma to his door. Coincidence? Fate? Or just the random chaos of the universe intersecting two lives that needed to intersect? He didn't believe in fate, but he believed in choices, in the power of deciding to help rather than ignore, to stand up rather than walk away. Emma had made that choice when she knocked on his door. He'd made it when he opened it. Now they'd see where those choices led. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Still looking for information on missing bride. Reward now $75,000. Call if you know anything. Vincent deleted the text, but not before noting that Marcus had increased the reward. Desperation was setting in, which meant they needed to move faster. He pulled out his laptop and began composing an encrypted email to Michael Costello at the FBI. It was time to plant seeds, to let the right people know that something worth investigating might be brewing. Tomorrow, Emma would disappear into hiding, and Vincent would begin the careful work of bringing down a corrupt prosecutor while keeping them both alive. He looked at the photo on his desk, his mother at her 60th birthday, free and happy. That's what he wanted for Emma, that freedom, that happiness, that chance to become who she was meant to be. Whatever it took, however long it required, he would make sure she got that chance. Vincent typed his email, encrypted it 3 times, and hit send. The game had begun. Emma stood in the Red Hook apartment, watching the city through the window. 3 weeks had passed since Tony brought her here. 3 weeks of isolation, waiting, and fear that Marcus would find her. Vincent visited when he could, bringing news and hope. The FBI is interested, he told her during one visit. Agent Costello wants to meet you, hear your story directly. When? Emma asked, feeling both relief and terror. Next week. We're setting up a secure location. Vincent handed her a folder. These are financial records Tony obtained, evidence of Marcus receiving payments from Serrano accounts. Emma studied the documents, seeing proof of everything she'd suspected. This could really work. It will work, Vincent assured her. You just need to stay patient a little longer. But patience was running out. That evening, Vincent received a disturbing call from Tony. Boss, we have a problem. Someone was asking questions about the Red Hook building. Described a woman matching Emma's description. Vincent's blood ran cold. Move her. Tonight. Within hours, Emma was packed and ready. Vincent arrived personally to escort her to a new safe house, a cabin upstate, remote and secure. As they drove through the night, Emma watched the city disappear behind them. He's getting closer, isn't it? We're staying ahead of him, Vincent replied. And soon we won't need to run anymore. Soon we'll have enough to bring him down. Emma wanted to believe him. She had to believe him. Their future depended on it. The cabin became Emma's sanctuary. For 2 months, she and Vincent worked with FBI agent Costello, building an airtight case against Marcus. The financial records, Emma's testimony, and additional evidence Tony gathered painted a clear picture of corruption. We have enough, Costello finally announced during a secure video call. Delacroix's accounts show payments totaling over $3 million from Serrano sources. Combined with your testimony about the threat you overheard, we can move forward. Emma felt relief wash over her. When? Tomorrow morning. We'll arrest him at his office. Vincent sat beside Emma as they watched the news the next day. Marcus Delacroix being led out of the DA's office in handcuffs, reporters shouting questions, his perfect facade finally crumbling. It's over, Emma whispered. No, Vincent corrected gently. It's beginning. Your real life starts now. 3 months later, Emma sat in a coffee shop, her coffee shop. With Vincent's help, she'd used the settlement from her annulled marriage to open a small cafe that employed young people from foster care. Vincent visited often, and slowly, carefully, something deeper grew between them. Thank you, Emma said one autumn afternoon, for answering the door. Vincent smiled. Thank you for knocking. They'd both found redemption in the most unexpected place, in each other's courage to choose differently.